Hey everybody, welcome to another 10-minute Marvel video. I'm Petter, and today there's an interesting theory that I want to talk about that came up on the podcast. So if you're watching this now, congrats, you're a little bit ahead of the game. But this was a really interesting idea that at first both Greg and I were like, we're not really buying it. But as we looked into it a little bit more and talked about it a little bit more throughout the episode, I now want to toss out kind of a theory around it. And this has to do with Agatha All Along episode 5 and even whose trial it was. Because one of our complaints about episode 5, and episode 5 was a fun episode. There were some really good kind of key moments to it and some interesting depth elements to it that I enjoyed, but it was short and it was fast, and it felt like we really didn't have time to set up the trial for what it should be. So the theory going around is that this is possibly not actually a trial that has happened yet. This trial is going to exist and it's going to happen, but what we've seen is a vision of how it could go. And we are seeing, kind of as things are going right now, how it will go. And we're seeing that through Lilia Calderu's eyes. Because she is a divination witch. She sees into the future. And so she is seeing into a future that when we get to Agatha's trial, things are going to go really poorly. Alice is going to die. The teen is going to reveal his Wiccan powers and is going to bury Jennifer, Lilia, and Agatha on the road. Because where do we go from here? Where does the series continue from here? I think there's a chance, no matter what, that it leaves us in suspense for another episode. And this upcoming episode is going to be kind of a flashback to gain a better understanding of the teen. I think there's a lot we can pull from there. But there's more than just kind of this vague theory as to why this episode maybe felt rushed, maybe felt like the trial didn't make as much sense. Because the trial didn't. And I think it makes sense that if this is actually Agatha's trial, Agatha didn't learn anything from it. It's not a trial in the way that the other witches have kind of experienced their trials and gotten powers and kind of started the healing process. Agatha is still just as selfish and bad as ever in this. So if we're looking at it and going, why would she basically be having the same issue or not learning everything? Like, why did the road just decide to allow her to pass? Is it just because the teen signed off on Nicholas Scratch on the Ouija board with goodbye? Sure, maybe it is as simple as that. But it doesn't feel like a real trial. There wasn't much of anything that truly happened that tested or challenged anyone. Plus, then we have Lilia's kind of premonitions. And I'm looking over here because I want to make sure I get the wording right, though I do believe I just closed the tab that I wanted. But basically, there's a few different lines that Lilia says earlier on. I love you guys. And then Alice don't and try to save Agatha. And the try to save Agatha hears that and it's like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. But we don't know the order of all of these things. So it might be that as we come to this trial, like the coven has continued to grow and bond together. And at the beginning, Lilia doesn't... none of the witches really like each other that much. They maybe like Teen, but they're all kind of standoffish in their own way. And especially for Lilia, who has seen so many witches die over the years, and like we really get that trauma from her past just in how she handles all these different trials. I can see why she would be the person who maybe would have the most trouble with kind of coming together as a coven again. And then we have the Alice don't try and save Agatha. Alice don't try and save Agatha. What if that is one sentence? We see what happens when Alice tries to save Agatha. There might even be some truth to this idea that Agatha can't fully control that stealing of the powers. I speculate in the podcast episode that maybe that was the dark power that she sought. In her mind, it was this power that she was going to control. Agatha's nothing if not confident and power hungry. So she thinks, okay, this is going to be a dark magic, something dark that I can tap into, and it maybe is coming from a seductive voice. Maybe that of Rio, of death. And I'm going to say death here. If you haven't looked into my theories on that, you can check out previous videos. But if Rio is death, imagine this deal that she made with death, or she maybe made with the devil. You can say it either way. But let's say she made it with death. And death basically says, I'm going to give you the power to gain more power. But of course, it's not going to be as simple as that. Death isn't just going to give you a ton of power, the power to drain the magic from somebody else without getting something in return. So Agatha doesn't really have control over it. She's not lying when she says that at the end of episode 5. If she is blasted with power, she will steal it. The Scarlet Witch got around it because of the runes that were put in place. That magic couldn't activate because of the runes, basically. Nobody could cast, nobody but the Scarlet Witch could cast spells within those runes. And so it is kind of that magical essence. But when she gets blasted with power, and her own coven tries to kill her, they're treating her and they're having their own witch trial of her. She's okay with it because it saves her. She is selfish. She wants to gain those powers. And she even is maybe confident enough to think that she can have the power over death. And it might be giving up Nicholas. Maybe Nicholas was ill. Let's just go with that. Let's say Nicholas was ill. And so he was going to die. There was no way to cure him. He'd been getting worse. She makes the deal with this seductive Rio death character. And it costs her Nicholas. But she's confident and selfish enough to think, I can beat and cheat death. I can get Nicholas back by walking the witch's road. Anyways, we're going off on a tangent here, but it all ties kind of into what we saw in episode 5 and how it could all be that vision of Lilia Calderu. This trial that we have, and it might even be Lilia's true trial if we see it in this next episode or the episode after, is to convince people that she's not crazy. That what she saw in these random outbursts that she's had that are definitely going to make people think she is crazy, but what she is seeing will come to pass unless something changes. So it's a very interesting theory, and the one question I have about it is it too complex? Is this idea that this trial never happened, that Alice didn't die, that the 3 other witches weren't buried, is that too much? But I don't know that it really is, especially if Lilia Calderu's trial is the very Wizard of Ozzy one, where she is living out kind of these worst stereotypes to get people to believe her. Because we know that episode is still coming. And to me, that is a perfect... We get the teen, recap episode about who the teen is, how the teen came to be. This episode after the reveal that the teen is Wiccan. And then the following episode, we get Lilia's trial that leads us into this big 2-part finale where we delve more into Agatha's history, but also get the full version of this trial, and then the final kind of ending thing with Agatha and the teen. But let me know your thoughts on this theory. Does it make sense? Would it feel like it is too much in terms of the story? Let me know that down in the comment section below. And check out our conversation. I will say it's maybe a little bit briefer, but we touch on a bunch of different things around this, as well as the whole of episode 5 on the 10 Minute Marvel podcast that's coming out this Tuesday. So more conversation on that over there. And check out the other theory videos that we have here on the 10 Minute Marvel YouTube channel. And check out our backlog on the podcast episodes. You can find them here on YouTube. Click on the channel, subscribe if you don't mind, and then the podcast tab, or you can find the podcast wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcasts from. But with that, see you next time.